Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. I'm Jenna Stauffer, now living here in Key West, one of the most beautiful places in the world. Artists are just offered endless inspiration for subjects to paint. Now, few, though, can capture the maritime history and the tropical beauty of Key West, like my first guest this morning, local artist David Harrison Wright. He's actually considered to be one of our country's premier maritime artists and watercolor painters. His work is magnificent. You can see it behind me, and he is so adored by so many people down here in the Keys. David, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much. That's very high praise indeed.
Well, you deserve it,
appreciate
David.
that. Thank you.
You have such beautiful work. And now, David, I want to know how you ended up here in the Keys.
Well, that's an interesting question. When I was a kid, about 7 years old, I grew up in Texas, and we went to the drive-in movie one night, and I saw Reap the Wild Wind. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but it's a wonderful color movie on life in Key West in the 1840s with wreckers and pirates, and had a very young John Wayne and Paulette Goddard, and it was kind of like Gone with the Wind at Sea. I've always been fascinated with ships in the sea, and so I was really hooked at that age. And finally in the 70s I got to actually for the first time visit Key West and realized what a very special place it was. And eventually finally moved here because I realized that Key West was where my heart was.
Where your heart was.
Yes.
So this is where your home is now.
Yes, it is now. It's been my home now for almost 30 years.
Okay. How long have you been painting for, David?
I started when I was a kid. And when I went off to school, I studied interior design, and we took several classes in using watercolors to paint perspectives and room perspectives and designs and furniture and draperies and things like that. And I discovered that I enjoyed it, and I was, fairly good at it.
Very good at it.
Well, took a bit of polishing, but when I graduated, I went to work for a large interior design company and did that for many years. And finally then bought a sailboat and moved to Key West and started doing the charter business for several years, and then moved ashore and went into the painting because doing the paintings was much easier than the charter business.
Okay, David. Now our viewers can see your work behind us. What would you say is your purpose with each piece that you create?
I think Key West has a most wonderful maritime history. It's very colorful, and it covers a long span of time, from the times the native Calusa Indians were cruising these waters, and then when the Europeans came to this part of the world, they began to explore and plunder, and then the Navy came to Key West, and there's just such a long history of maritime events that have happened here. And they're all in this wonderful stage of these wonderful colors, these beautiful turquoise and viridian ocean colors and clear waters. So if you imagine these various historical vessels over a time period, and they're all tied together by this beautiful turquoise water. And so that's the tie. All the paintings that I do have that same beautiful color that runs through them, either a beautiful sky, but certainly always the beautiful turquoise waters. So that's what holds them together. And then there's just the various types and periods that I want to depict, because I'd love for people to be aware of the history, the maritime history, and to actually see them so they can visualize what life must have been like then.
So your pictures tell a story.
I hope so.
They do. They definitely do. How would you say your work has really changed over the years, David?
Well, it's like riding a bicycle. The more you do, the easy, I would say easier it gets. But you learn things to do, and I did a lot of commercial art over the years, which was not really art I wanted to paint, but I was being paid to paint it, and so, as little Homer said, I'll do anything, paint anything for money. So it was a great practice. It was painting architecture and advertising and items, marketing items, that sort of thing. And it was a wonderful practice. I did a series of 10 jigsaw puzzles for a company in Vermont. And that was great too, because that was over a long period of time. And it was really good exposure. You know, people got to know my work that way.
What are you working on right now, David?
Well, I've just finished 2 large paintings for the airport that I'm real pleased with. I've always been fascinated with flying boats. And Key West had a very unique place in history, there again, on the water, with these flying boats. The first one started mail service. They got a contract with the government to do mail service and passenger service, regular passenger service to Havana. So they were flying back and forth. They landed on the water down where the pier house is now. So they took passengers and mail to Havana. And there were these wonderful big planes painted white with big portholes, and very fashionable people were doing this because it was rather expensive. But they also, this was before radio, so they carried a crate of carrier pigeons on the wings. And the pilot and co-pilot sat in an open cockpit. So when they needed to send messages back to Key West, they would put them on the carrier pigeons and chuck them out as they were flying. Sometimes the wild hawks would eat the pigeons, so they'd have to send several. But that's just another aspect of flying in Key West. They were the first airline in the country, probably the world, to have a ticket booth, to have luggage labels, and to have an in-flight movie. They had this little sort of suitcase projector. They would open up and pull a screen down on the bulkhead and show this short movie about their silent movie, of course, about their other facilities, because they flew in the north in the summertime. I mean, yeah, for the summertime they flew New York, Newport, Atlantic City, those areas. So it was a bit of advertising this movie, but you know, with the movie and the ticket office and the pigeons in the air, it makes a wonderful story. And I painted her coming in for a landing in Havana Harbor. And the other one is a flying boat that came in the 30s, which became actually Pan American Airways, and eventually was a type that was used as the famous PVY in World War II that did so much for the war effort. But these 2 paintings are hanging up at the airport, and I wrote this information along the bottom of them. So they tell me people love to come up and look at them and read it. So they're standing there at the airport learning something about Key West maritime history.
That's wonderful, and I can't wait to see them. David, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back after this.